All right, we're going to jump back in time today to one of the biggest, most infamous data breaches in gaming history. I'm talking about a digital blackout that pretty much wiped an entire online universe off the map and put millions and millions of users at risk. So yeah, let's get right into it.
Picture this. For 29 straight days, almost a whole month, back in 2011, one of the biggest online services on the planet, a place where millions of us hung out, just poof, vanished from the internet. Now here's the thing, this wasn't some server tripping over a cable. Nope. This was no accident, no random glitch. This was the result of a massive security failure. So the big question is, what in the world happened to the PlayStation network? Okay, so let's set the scene. First up, PSN goes dark. For you, for me, for millions of gamers, the first sign that something was wrong was probably just a simple connection error. You know, you try to log in, it fails, you try again. But behind the scenes, a full-blown crisis was exploding.
And I really got to stress this. This wasn't a crash. On April 20th, 2011, Sony themselves made the call. They deliberately pulled the plug on the entire PlayStation network and its Curiosity music service. Why? It was a drastic, last-ditch effort to contain a security breach that was spiraling out of control.
So what could possibly force a company like Sony to do something that huge? Well, to get that, we've got to look at the anatomy of the breach itself. How did the attackers get in, what were they looking for, and how did they pull it off?
Okay, look at this timeline. It shows just how fast everything went south. The bad guys got in sometime between April 17th and 19th, just 2 days. And by the very next day, April 20th, boom, Sony shuts it all down. And get this, it took almost a whole month until May 15th before they could even start bringing things back online, piece by piece.
And the scale, the sheer scale of this thing was just jaw-dropping. We're talking about 77 million registered accounts. 77 million. At the time, that was one of the biggest breaches anyone had ever seen. So how did they do it? Well, it wasn't just one magic trick. It was more like a heist, a chain of events. Step 1, they found a way in, getting unauthorized access to the network. Step 2, once they were inside, they moved laterally, kind of creeping through the system until they found the gold mine, the databases holding all our account info. And then, step 3, they started copying and pulling all of that personal data right out.
Now, here's a really important detail, something that tells you a lot about how these things go down in the real world. Despite all the rumors and speculation, Sony never actually publicly confirmed how the attackers first got in. And that's a key lesson, right? Sometimes in a crisis, you have to make a huge call to stop the bleeding, even before you know exactly where the wound is.
Okay, so this brings us to the question that every single person with a PSN account was asking. What did they get? What if my information was stolen? Let's really break down what was at risk here.
This chart lays it out pretty clearly. The bad news? Your personal info. We're talking name, address, email, all that stuff. Yep, compromised. Your login and password? Also compromised. But here's the good news, or at least the not as bad news. The table with the credit card numbers was thankfully encrypted. That was huge. And even better, those 3-digit security codes on the back of your card, Sony wasn't storing them at all, which is exactly what you're supposed to do.
So let's get specific, because this is what really makes it hit home. What was compromised? Your full name, your address, city, state, zip, country, your email address, your date of birth, and of course, your PSN login and password. Basically, a starter kit for identity theft. And on top of that, it was possible they also grabbed your purchase history and maybe even your security question answers.
As you can imagine, the fallout from this was massive. It really forced a lot of companies, not just Sony, to rethink cybersecurity. So let's do a little then and now. Let's compare how Sony reacted in 2011 with how an incident like this would probably be handled today. Back in 2011, Sony's response was what we'd call reactive. They got hit, they shut everything down, they investigated, and then they bolted on more defenses, more firewalls, more monitoring. Today, the whole philosophy is flipped. Modern defense is proactive. You start with this idea of assume breach. You assume the bad guys are already in or will get in. So instead of just building a bigger wall, you focus on limiting the damage they can do once they're inside. That means things like zero trust, multi-factor authentication, and way stronger password protection from day one. So what's this zero trust thing I just mentioned? Here's the easiest way to think about it. Imagine your network is a high security building. Old school security was all about a strong front door.
Zero trust is like having security guards and keycard checks on every single door inside the building. It doesn't matter if you're already inside. You have to prove who you are every time you try to go anywhere new. It makes it incredibly hard for an intruder to move around and get to the good stuff.
Okay, so this whole mess became a textbook example in cybersecurity classes. Seriously. So after all this time, what are the big, lasting lessons we learned from the PSN blackout?
Well, for starters, let's talk money. Sony's own estimate for the cost of this breach, including fixing everything, the downtime, all of it, came out to about $171 million. $171 million. If that's not a powerful reason to take security seriously, I don't know what is.
And that huge number wasn't the only cost. Governments and regulators got involved. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office, for example, hit Sony with a £250,000 fine. And their reasoning was brutal. They said the breach was preventable and that Sony's security just was not good enough. That sent a shockwave through the industry. Basic security isn't just a good idea anymore, it's the law.
So when you put it all together, the lessons are crystal clear. Number 1, encrypt all the sensitive stuff, not just the payment info. Number 2, an unencrypted database of user info is a ticking time bomb, period. Number 3, when passwords leak, you better have a plan for what happens next, like credential stuffing attacks. 4, sometimes shutting the whole thing down is the only right move to protect your users. And 5, regulators are watching and they expect you to get the basics right.
And really, it all boils down to this single, powerful idea. The goal today isn't to pretend you can build a fortress that's impossible to breach. It's to design your system so that one mistake, one single intrusion, can't turn into a catastrophe for 77 million people. It's all about containing the blast radius. And that lesson, learned the hard way back in 2011, is more important now than ever.